Let's get started with our next keynote. Today we have with us Bentsi Ben-atar, CMO and co-founder at Sepio. We'll be talking about hardware assets as ransomware vehicles. Please feel free to post any questions you may have, and we will do our best to answer them before the session ends. You can also reach out to Sepio by going to the company booth for text, voice, or video chat with the booth manager. So I'll hand over to you now, Bentsi. Bentsi, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you, Jose?
Well, not too bad. Welcome aboard.
Great. So are we good to start, or would you like to wait another minute?
No, I mean, actually, I'm going to mute my mic right now. I'm going to stop my camera and hand over the floor to you.
Okay. So let's start. Okay, so hello everybody. Thank you very much for joining in. I hope this will be an interesting session for all of you. My name is Ben. I'm one of the co-founders and CMO for Sepio, and I'll be presenting the hardware assets as ransomware vehicles. And in order to get all of us in the right mood, let's start by showing you a very nice video clip that actually shows that ransomware may act in mysterious ways. So please bear with me. Okay, so what have we seen here? So we've seen that a simple off-the-shelf device with known vulnerabilities, in this case, it's a wireless combo mouse, was used in order to inject payload using HID scripts in order to run a ransomware attack on the victim's machine, without the need to introduce new piece of hardware, without the need to go over internet connection, and more importantly, without the need to go head-to-head against existing cybersecurity products, because actually it bypassed all the web content filtering and all the security measures that were in place by using a known vulnerability, in this case, through the unifying receiver. So that was one example. So one may argue that this, it's a screened video with, by the way, all of the actors were Sepio's employees. So let's do something live. So let's show it in a live demonstration what can be done. So I'm actually gonna plug this rubber ducky device. This device actually impersonates as a legitimate keyboard approved on my machine. With the same vendor ID, product ID, class ID. That means that everything about this device from the endpoint perspective is actually a legitimate keyboard. I'm running several agents, some of what are considered, at least by Gartner Magic Quadrant, to be the best endpoint security solution in the market. And let's see what happens. So what you actually see now is the actual script for the encryption actually running on my machine. with some nice coloring all around. And now my temporary folder, which I've created under ransomware, is now been encrypting files over my machine, and a kind of a message, a ransomware message, has been displayed. And the cool thing about this attack, that first, it didn't trigger any alert from the endpoint security side, and the other thing is that you don't need to be a computer genius or a qualified hacker in order to run this attack. All you need to have is some basic physical access to the victim's machine, and as you can see, it's just a momentary access to that machine. So lately, it's been in the news, although hardware attacks in general and USB specifics have been around for many years, running on multiple verticals. It could be ATMs, it could be others. In recent weeks and recent months, there have been some focus on Fin7 hacking group that created a kind of a campaign that was based on a bad USB device. Again, being out there for many years, it is still one of the most effective way of attacking victims' machine. And correct, you do have to have physical access into the victim's machine, but think of the number of people that could go in and out of your office wearing masks sometimes, working in an environment that is now way more appealing and way more easy for the attackers, because some of the enterprises has moved into remote working or hybrid working, so that a lot of times the offices are left unattended, and this is an extremely fertile ground for the potential attackers. Some real life examples, and again, sometimes one may argue that hardware attacks are mainly the business of FSB or the Chinese or the NSA or other kind of spy business, but this is no longer the case. We've seen hardware attacks being used for ransomware, for denial of service, for data exfiltration and leakage, by using very simple hardware assets. In this case, it could be a mouse that has a Raspberry Pi Zero implanted in it. In this case, it was a Raspberry Pi W, so that the exfiltration was done through the wireless interface of the Pi Zero itself. And again, the device itself, when examined by the EDR or the DLP, presented itself as a legitimate device with the same vendor ID, product ID, class ID of any legitimate device that was approved on that machine. And this is one of the most popular ways of when you want to infect an air-gapped network or an endpoint within an air-gapped network, that would be your weapon of choice. So it is happening, and it's happening not only on the government federal arena, but also in commercial through cybercrime syndicates and other high-profile attackers. So the most popular attack vehicles, not surprising, is one would be the insider threat, especially in periods of downtime, financial downtimes. A recruiting insider threat, especially when this insider or internal abuser doesn't have to be a high-tech guy. It could be the cleaning lady, as you could see, if you've seen them in the movie, concealing something within a vacuum cleaner. It could be a student coming for an interview, a Volt courier or UPS or FedEx, whoever has physical access into the premises of your office or home, and we'll talk about that in a minute, could pose a potential threat and might be considered as an insider threat. Some of the insider threats are what we call naive bystanders, in the sense that you've got a giveaway that could be a USB cup warmer or kind of a gadget, a USB fan, or any other type of USB gadget, and you, without knowing about it, actually become the carrier of the attack. And one of the nice attacks that we show is actually using an OMG or a Ninja cable, and I'll elaborate about that in a minute. But this looks like a normal charging cable that you would find, lying around in your conference room and a healthcare environment, in production facilities. You've seen them being used for multiple devices. The other attack vehicle, which is a bit more sophisticated, is the supply chain. And supply chain presents a very lucrative path into the enterprise's assets because they are extremely difficult to be identified. So think of the last time that you've actually opened up your keyboard or mouse or any of your devices. So unless you're like a completely paranoid or completely hardware geek, the chances of you actually opening up the infrastructure that you're being using in your home environment or in your enterprise environment are very low. So if you can implant the device through the supply chain, then you're in most cases well fitted in for a long period of time, being extremely persistent. So that would be an extremely excellent way for a potential attacker to find its way into more sensitive areas, because let's assume that you're targeting a critical infrastructure and you want to put a ransomware, you want to run a ransomware attack on it. Then one option would be to try to find your way into the actual site. Another way would be to have someone go out and apply for a job as a warehouse worker in the system integrator that provides the IT equipment for that site. And when that internal abuser identifies a shipment that is intended for that specific site, then he could change a mouse, change a keyboard, change a server, change a laptop, so that the attack tool will be safely concealed within those devices that are supplied. And again, it is extremely difficult to identify those manipulated devices, and sometimes it takes state level capabilities in order to fully identify them. So why use hardware devices? So the general perception, if you'll ask people about ransomware attacks, then the obvious reason, the obvious answer that you will get is that they are carried out through the internet. So through phishing or spear phishing or online campaigns. If you've been unfortunate enough to be targeted by any of those campaigns and your name came up, then you'll be getting an email saying kind of a link of showing you a salary of January 2022, and you'll be extremely intrigued by that, and you might click on a link or might be directed to a certain website, and it somehow got the perception that ransomware can be run only through online activities, and this is obviously no longer the case, as you've seen in the examples that I've just showed you. Now, hardware-based attacks offer significant advantages to the attackers. First of all, you bypass existing cybersecurity measures because you don't bring anything from the outside. You physically connect a device, so all those content inspection and spear phishing solutions or DLP solution are actually useless in those scenarios, especially when the device that you're using actually spoofs a legitimate device that is on the allow list of that specific enterprise. So it allows a very easy bypass of existing cybersecurity, and until now running against I think all main vendors out there with different security, DLPs, endpoint security, XDR, we haven't found one solution that could effectively prevent those attacks from actually happening. The second thing is the fact that you have an identifiable target. So that means that if you're looking at a specific target within a bank or within a critical infrastructure, you want to run a ransomware campaign on a specific machine, then the fact that you have a physical eye view of that target, it's kind of an easy identifiable compared with running a campaign of over an online platform that you don't really know when and where this link will be launched from. The hardware attacks is way more suited for internal abuser. You need to have just a couple of seconds of unsuspecting eyes. You can do that on during various days of various hours of the day when people are at their lunch breaks, even if their machines are locked out or any other type of capture countermeasures. All of these measures or bycatches, all of these measures can be easily bypassed by a professional attacker. And here I want to raise also the importance and the impact that work from home had on ransomware attack with regards to hardware device attacks. And with this, I'll introduce another variant of the ransomware, what is called the proof of data ransomware, which is not the encrypting type of ransomware. And I've named it the ransomware bluff. And if you think of it, for today, for the average Joe to run a ransomware campaign, running what I call a ransomware bluff, is very easy. And if you'll go into one of our videos in our website, you will actually see that demo when you connect a Ninja cable to a victim's machine. And what this payload does is actually it captures a screen from the user, assuming that this user may be connected now over a cloud infrastructure to his enterprise's, let's say, HubSpot or Salesforce or any other type of a source of proprietary information. And then you actually do Control-C, and then you go out and find your way to a website that allows you to paste public comments, for example, YouTube, and you can paste the data on those websites, and then all you have to do as the attacker is just subscribe to that YouTube channel, and when something pastes into those channels, then you will get the immediate notification on that. And the cool thing about this attack is that now you can take that information and build your proof of data and send it to the victim. Now your victim will look into this data and he say, okay, that's really an authenticated data. So you will be threatening as the attacker that you have 500 gigabytes waiting to be downloaded and released. The amount of effort and the amount of time that it will take the victims to actually understand what happened and if it's a false alarm or not is, it's tens of thousands of dollars at minimum, and it could run to millions if it's a large enterprise of running such an incident response sequence. And all the attacker had to do is just obtain a couple of screenshots, and if people are working from home and your daughter brings her let's say shady new boyfriend, and he gets a chance to run his hardware attack using just plugging for a minute is USB charging cable to your enterprise's laptop without being picked up by your endpoint security, then that's a significant breach. So this is another bluff, and there's no real statistics of how many of those are bluffs and how many are not. One indication would be that for those analyzing those campaigns or those attacks that initially provided some screenshots or some proprietary data, and then they've threatened to release additional data, and those companies didn't pay, and yet again the data wasn't released. So I believe that some of them might be what I call the bluff ransomware attacks. Now, just how easy and affordable it is. So obviously the answer is very. All you need to do is spend a couple of dollars on a Hack 5 gear, or you can do it in AliExpress. In $1.50 you could buy yourself a DigiSpark device that could run these ransomware attacks. You don't have to be the brightest engineer or the brightest pen tester or whatever to run these attacks. All the information and all the data is out there. You don't even have to go to the darknet for that. You just Google these stuff. You go into various rubber ducky payloads, and you will find the overwhelming variety of payloads, of ready-made payloads with some countermeasure against various security measures. So it's really that easy, and you don't have to master them. They're extremely low cost. Some of them are really miniature in size. Some of them have wireless capabilities that you could run up to a mile away. There's a nice YouTube video showing a a OMG cable being run in a urban environment from a mile away, which is a phenomenal achievement done by Darren Kitchen from Hack 5. That means that you can actually do this from a mile away. You can do it from across the building. And as you've seen in the original video that I've presented, you don't even have to introduce new piece of hardware. If you know that your target is using any type of wireless combo device, whether it's considered to be secured with a AES sticker on the package or not, all these wireless combos can be hacked, and you could stand in the parking lot or the building next door and hack into the enterprise assets and run your ransomware campaign from there. And these devices obviously are malicious by nature, so everything about them is optimized for those specific tasks. And you have here the example of a Ninja cable, again looking as a completely naive cable. So I'll just use the couple of minutes that we have left before the Q&A just to what we are doing about it in Sepio. So what we're doing is we're providing our partners the ability to manage risks originating from their hardware assets. And we do that by providing complete visibility to everything that's connected in their enterprise, whether it's IT, IoT, OT, IOMT, everything that's connected somewhere in the enterprise, whether it's managed or unmanaged, whether it's over a wireless or a wired infrastructure, and whether it's a simple peripheral connected over USB connection to a host, or whether it's a network element connected somewhere in the enterprise. Once we have the visibility in place, then we can move into the policy enforcement and actually decide, for example, that when someone is working from a shared working space like Regis or something similar to that, then the level of hardware security will be tightened, so that even if this person leaves his laptop on the table just to grab his coffee, no one will be able to plug in anything without being blocked. And obviously, rogue device mitigation, identifying all those spoof devices that try to impersonate as legitimate device, whether on the network domain or on the peripheral domain. The way we do it is that we use a new source of data. We use the physical layer data as our new source of information. And again, we do that on the network side and on the host side. This is extremely helpful because we don't have to look into traffic. We don't need to look into proprietary data. Everything that we're interested in is hardware metadata. How much power does this device draws from the hosting platform? How it behaves over time with regards to his consumption profile or emission profiles, or how the pattern of the waveform of the Ethernet signals looks like for this device if it's a network implant. So the fact that we do not need to look into the traffic actually allows us to deploy our solution extremely fast. It allows us to avoid privacy issues because we're not looking into any of the proprietary data. We're not an endpoint security, so we don't look into files. We don't look into the actual data. We're interested in understanding, is this device a bad USB or not? And is this device that currently claims to be a Logitech keyboard is really a Logitech keyboard, or there's a keylogger connected in line to that legitimate keyboard, or if it's a rubber ducky impersonating as that legitimate keyboard. And within 24 hours, our solution Hack1 will provide all that visibility and policy enforcement for any given environment. Again, some examples of the data that we collect both on the network side and the host side. Again, this is data that has been kind of left aside in the overall chasing of big data and layer 2 and above data for detection purposes and for cybersecurity solutions. The physical layer was kind of left behind, and we found this physical layer to be a kind of a gold mine for data and insight about the actual characteristics and the actual identification of a device. So that if you're looking into embracing a zero trust or CIS controls and and you want to get, the full device identification, and you want to have full risk scoring of your assets, then you need to be able to go down to the physical layer and actually identify, do we see a hardware device that is impersonating as a keyboard, as a legitimate keyboard? Do we see a passive tap? Do we see one of the coolest examples that we've seen, for example, was a man-in-the-middle USB proxy payload bypassing a biometric sensor? And again, all these attacks actually are pieces of puzzles of what we've seen as the ransomware pandemic, in the fact that they can generate a path in, they could run executables, and they can create an exfiltration path as well, whether it's an encryption type of ransomware, or if it's a data leakage type of ransomware. I'll go briefly over our solution. Is a SaaS-based solution that can be run on-prem or as a cloud, over a private cloud or a public cloud. It is a combination of physical layer fingerprinting augmented by machine learning to accommodate for all those devices that we haven't encountered before. And this, alongside the physical layer fingerprinting, allows us a complete detection of all the assets that we've encountered, including those that we were previously unaware about. Understanding that every cybersecurity solution works, within a given cybersecurity value chain. So our solution is very well integrated with various SIEM or SOAR solution, NAC solution, endpoint security, understanding that we're one piece of the puzzle, and we extend the visibility and the policy enforcement capabilities of those solutions that are connected as part of the cybersecurity infrastructure as a whole. Our solution can be run as an agentless solution or as a fixed agent like we run on ADMs. And for the network part, we just communicate with the existing infrastructure through a read-only SSH command, where we use that interface in order to harvest all the file layer information from the networking infrastructure. Sepio is based out in Rockville, Maryland. Our chairman is Len Best, former Palo Alto CEO and Zscaler. We have, and we take great pride, and we have an all-women US board led by Monique, the current CISO for HSBC, Bonnie and Katie, former commissioner for the SEC. We operated out of Tel Aviv, Israel, Lisbon, Portugal, and Rockville, Maryland. I'll be happy to discuss and answer any of your question. And at this time, I'll look into the chat window. So we'll see if we have something here. Okay. Could you disclose the name of the device if it is for protection and where to purchase it? If you're referring to the device that I've used for the demonstration, this one is a rubber ducky. This one is a rubber ducky that you can buy in Hack5. There are like numerous devices like that. One of the most popular devices being used to deliver scripts. So we've seen a Cactus Weed. Cactus Weed is a kind of a wireless version of the rubber ducky. It is popular because it can be run over a cellular connection or a Wi-Fi connection or a BLE connection, and it provides a good remote capabilities. And obviously the OMG cable is an excellent device for running these type of attacks. They are ready-made ransomware payloads, and sometimes it's almost ridiculous of how easy it is. It's like, there was that time when someone posted a 3D files for manufacturing a gun. It's about the same, I think the same impact. You can take down enterprises or create significant damage using a $5 device. So I'll write it down here. Yeah, you're right. Thank you, Jordan. So it's rubber ducky. Rubber ducky has been actually used as an overall term, but you can see as HID emulators. So if you go into AliExpress and you'll write a bad USB, you will find those devices, you will find DigiSpark, you will find TZ, you will find, you could have a variety of payloads running over Raspberry Pi Zero. And if you'll do the Google search alongside ransomware attacks, I think that you will find just how easy it is to run these attacks. And you rest assured that the attackers are doing the same, and they are as motivated as you are, and they master those tools. And those cybercrime organizations sometimes are affiliated with what we call classical criminal organizations. So all the key points of physical attacks, of going into places covertly, threatening people, gaining access into secret places. This is exactly what a criminal organization master at. And this, alongside the cyber criminal activity, provides kind of an overall ecosystem for running these successful ransomware attacks. And all you need to do, as you've seen, is a $5 device, and that's it. If you have any other questions, I'll be happy to take them.
There's another question, Bentsi. What are the most popular devices being used to deliver scripts?
So I think that the most popular I must say, would be the Pi Zero W, because of their wireless capabilities and the fact that they are relatively a strong platform. And we've seen them used over air-gapped networks, breaching over the USB interface over the network separation. So Raspberry Pi Zero for sure will be the top candidate. And all those cable impersonating devices, so it's the OMG cable and the Ninja cable, which again, they look extremely naive. And think of the number of occasions when you walked into a meeting room and there was, someone left his charging cable there, and you instantly, plugged your mobile device into that charging cable. And the same payloads that run on an endpoint environment actually run on a mobile devices as well. In some cases, even without any modification. So it's very easy, and the fact that you can conceal it in a naive-looking kind of a cocoon makes it very attractive.
I have one question for you. So when you guys say that you are also targeting, OT infrastructure, in order to secure them, at the hardware level. Last year we saw, in the US, some, suspected high-level attacks, within transformers, plugging into the power infrastructure. So actually, there were reports that some of the transformers were kicked out, just to analyzing them, because there was suspicion that there were implants on those transformers. Are you guys targeting also to be able to secure or to be able to understand if there are implants in those, for example, transformers, which is a very serious issue, because, it's difficult to source them, it takes a lot of time, and the damage into the power network might be, unparalleled. Okay,
so with regards to supply chain attacks, there are actually kind of two main flavors. There is what we call the soft flavored supply chain attacks, where you actually just implant a device with a module as a kind of a piggyback module or something like that, like you've seen in the mouse example that I presented earlier. By the way, that mouse came from a critical infrastructure, from an energy carrier being attacked using this HID device that was connected to his HMI over the electrical production floor. The other side of supply chain is what we call hardcore supply chain, and that would be more similar to the one that you're referring to, similar to the Bloomberg story with the Supermicro, for those of you who remember, where you actually tape out a chip that finds its way to the assembly line of a given device, and then if you can do that manipulation at the silicon level or at the chip level, it would be almost practically impossible to detect those devices. So there are two of those flavors. Currently, we cover the somewhere in between those two kind of flavors, and obviously we try to gain more and more footprint in that what we call the holy grail of hardcore supply chain attacks. Now, with regards to Jordan's question, the main problem here is that you can't really answer that because, again, going back to the original video that I've showed you, forensic-wise, this attack would have seen as a misfortunate or a unobedient employee that clicked on a link that he shouldn't have or something like that. So forensic-wise, it's very sometimes difficult to determine if the attack was carried out by a phishing attack or by an actual device that was put there. Is it because someone Googled something and then clicked on a link that he shouldn't have, or the device itself ran a script that actually launched the browser and then redirected it to a certain URL? So there's no real statistics about the distribution between how many of those ransomware attacks were physical and how many were remote. Yeah, so obviously disabling all USB ports is, it's probably impractical. Sometimes, by the way, we do get that kind of pushback saying, we'll go into an organization and, kind of will be brushed off saying, oh, we don't allow USB devices. And then you'll ask, okay, so how do people type? And they'll say a keyboard. And how do they navigate? Oh, a mouse. And how are they connected? Oh, over a USB. So for some unknown psychological reasons, people differentiate between the mouse and keyboard that are connected on the same USB interface compared with other devices. So usually when they say disabling devices, they would mean disabling you cannot connect a camera, you cannot connect a storage device, you cannot connect, maybe other devices, but at all times, you have the keyboard and the mouse as a minimum. And obviously, if these devices are the ones that are allowed, these are the devices that the attackers will be using. Another pushback with that would be with regards to cloud infrastructure. When people might say, "Oh, everything is on cloud," then I don't need to be worried about that. And if I'll go back to my previous comment on the ransomware bluff, it doesn't matter if you're running on a cloud environment or not. If your keyboard has been implanted or your mouse has been implanted, it will take screenshots and data from your host, regardless of the infrastructure that you're using, and then it will be exfiltrated through any type of exfiltration. It could be over Seller, it could be by posting it in a neutral website or that is allowed, or any other type of option. Okay, so with regards to how to mitigate that, so obviously the first step in that is actually identifying that there's a blind spot in your enterprise. So you don't need to be overconfident in saying, oh, I have this TLP, I have this endpoint security, I'm fully protected. You always need to think as a hacker and kind of challenge your team, whether through a red team or through other, just browsing over what the hacking community has to offer. And so the first step is awareness to this issue, and then once you decide that you want to follow this path, then you need to embrace zero trust hardware access. So this is a subset of the zero trust. And if zero trust talks about device identification and risk scoring, you need to verify that every piece of your infrastructure, even as simple as a mouse or as a keyboard or as a USB cup warmer or as a USB Microsoft, is validated and can be trusted. So just to Rafal, just to answer about the best way to defend. So obviously, our solution identifies those spoofing devices, again, based on physical layer characteristics. So in our case, that same rubber ducky demo that I did running a ransomware payload impersonating as a legitimate HP keyboard would not run on an endpoint that's been protected by the HackOne solution. Jose?
Okay, so thank you very much, Bentsi. Great stuff. Interesting presentation. Many questions. A lot of interest about this. So we are just, one session to go. Tomorrow we are going to have, Sepio with us in the LATAM, track. So please don't miss that out. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Enjoy your rest of the day. Thank you very much, Jose.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.